Hey everyone, this is John Gillie with TruckTractorTrailer.com. Thank you for tuning into our Stream podcast. Stream is a TruckTractorTrailer.com production that serves to educate our trucking community with real-life insights from industry experts to help you run your business, navigate your professional journey, or simply spark a new idea. Today's guest is the one and only Steve Tam, Vice President of America's Commercial Transportation Research Company, better known as ACT Research, a highly respected, well-recognized, market-leading publisher of commercial vehicle industry data, market analysis, and forecasting services. We are fortunate to have Steve with us today here in mid-December to share his unique perspective on the commercial vehicle market as we look back on 2023 and head full throttle into 2024. Hey, Steve, how are you, my friend? Happy holidays.
John, happy holidays to you. I'm doing great. I'm doing fantastic. Am I blushing after that introduction?
You should be. No, I quote you about 10 times a day. So it's great to have you here. It was great seeing you at the Used Truck Association conference in San Antonio last month. Yeah. I know we've had time to kind of decompress a little bit and look back on the conference. What was your key takeaways?
You know, for me, I think there's a couple of them, right? So the conference was probably the best one that I've attended so far. And full disclosure, I think I've only missed two of them, and they're celebrating their 25th anniversary next year. So the thing that probably struck me the most was just the resilience of the folks in the used truck community. You know, they've been through an awful lot over the last, 3-4 years. Sure. And you know, God love them, they just keep coming back for more. So.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And it's such a good group, resilient. It's an industry of folks that love what we do.
Sure, absolutely.
You know, and the room is filled with competitors, but also while you're there, it's fair competition, of course, but you got a family community sense to it.
That's right. Yeah, I think they really collaborate. And for my 2 cents, I think that's kind of the real value proposition. You know, just the networking opportunity alone is priceless. I can't tell you, of all the relationships that I have formed and developed over the years with not just the dealers, but, to your point, the suppliers, right? And you're absolutely right. They are competitors. But, when somebody gets a good idea, they're not afraid to share it, because they raise the bar for the industry. And I think that's one of the things I really love about the space.
Yeah. Awesome. So what else? How are you looking at 2023 as we're closing out the year? Of course, we have 2 weeks left. In December, we're recording this on December 13th for anyone who's looking at a calendar. So we're in between holidays. We're coming at the end of 23, but also now preparing for a 2024. So Steve, if you can go into a little more detail as you can on 2023, looking back, how do you characterize it?
Yeah, sure. One of the things, John, I'd like to point out is, every dealer has their own story, right? They each have their own perspective, and hearing what they have to say, again, another one of those big benefits from that conference to me is really, it's informative. When we hear the questions they ask, the things that are keeping them up at night, going and finding answers to those questions are things that try to make us smarter. So, and I would be remiss if I didn't point out, if you think about statistics, when you calculate an average, let's just use the average truck price, for example, half of the prices are going to be below that and half of the prices are going to be above that. So everybody's coming at it from a different directive or a different direction. So, so thinking about, I guess, on the 23 time frame, the year has really been one of challenges for the industry. It's just amazing how many things that we've had to put up with. You look at the economy, right? You look at what's happened with freight, what's happened with fuel prices, what's happened with interest rates. The whole darn business got really expensive. And, for the folks who are still in it today, the carriers who are still operating today, kudos to them, because they figured out those challenges, right? They figured out how to operate in that environment. And it goes right back to that resilience thing. So we saw prices, John. I don't know about just looking specifically at 2023, but think about the cycle that we've seen since COVID, right? And what's happened with used truck prices. We went from $30,000 a truck for an average price for a truck, and that would have been back kind of the middle of 2020. And we peaked in April of last year at 3 times that, at $90,000. That's how much we went from peak to trough, or trough to peak, I guess. You heard the stories, right? Used trucks costing more than new trucks. It was just an insane environment. And of course, now in 2023, back more specifically to your question, we're on the downside of that curve. So we've gone from $90,000, and we're not down to that $30,000 number yet. The data that we're looking at says, it's closer to kind of 40, 45,000. So we've come down quite a way. We've come down by half. And, maybe we'll talk about 2024 as we get further into the interview, but things seem to have stabilized a little bit. And if you look at in particular at the retail market for the last 3 months, and that would be August, September, October, retail prices were essentially flat, which is good. Now, obviously, if you're trying to sell a truck, right, you want to make more money. But in terms of buying a truck, you don't want prices going up any further. And so that's kind of the environment that we're seeing. Now, the preliminary data suggests that, prices are still coming down a little bit. And again, putting all those pieces together, looking at the economy and looking at what's happening with freight and those costs that I talked about, doesn't surprise that we've got some downward pressure on pricing in the secondary market.
Yeah, we're seeing the same thing. We have a very unique, well, of course, you see the data, you analyze the data, you have terrific sources, you have a 360 view. No one has a better pulse on the market than Steve Tam and ACT. That's my read on it. However, I'll pat TTT, our team, on the back a little bit and promote us because of where we sit in the market. We are at the juxtaposition of wholesalers and retailers, dealers, new dealers, used. We have fleets and carriers. We have importers. We deal with people from around the globe. So we have an interesting perch, and it's dynamic pricing we're facing. On any given day, we have about 200 units for sale on our platform. We have another 1,000 units behind it, ready for sale, that we work with our wholesalers on. So it's interesting, but you're right. The pricing in the last 90 days has stabilized, which is awesome for the buyer because now they have a higher level of confidence to purchase, a propensity to purchase. Right. It's not so good for the sellers that bought, 6 months ago, 9 months ago, even 18 months ago. They were buying those trucks at $60,000, $70,000, $80,000, which are now retailing for $35,000 or $40,000. So think about the auction houses that went out and loaded up, and they were on consignment. So it's very challenging for certain aspects of the market, but I do see a normalized operating rhythm happening, and I think that's very good going into 2024. You characterize 23 as a year of challenges. Yep. No argument, absolutely, for everyone. Yep. But I think in 2024, for those of us who and those of our partners that have survived 23 and gotten stronger, that we're on the right side of history. I think 2024, and I think you and I are on opposite sides, and that's all right. We see 2024 we're super bullish on 24. Yeah, I think the data suggests on your end that you weren't quite there yet.
Yeah, so it depends on which market you're looking at because we cover the new truck market as well as the used truck market. So on the used truck side, we think 24 is going to be a year of stability. We think prices are basically going to kind of hold or maintain. And then maybe, as we get out to the end of the year, we'll get the rebalancing that we're looking for. And what I'm talking about there, you just think about the amount of work that's out there to be done, be it freight getting hauled or on the vocational side, construction work, whatever. Think about that amount of work, and then you think about the number of trucks that you have to do that work, right? Today, we've got the phrase we use is too many trucks chasing too little freight, right?
Right.
Once we can bring that back into balance, then we're going to see demand for used trucks pick up, and then that pricing pressure comes back, right? It'll start to lift prices. We think that's probably a kind of end of year phenomenon in the 2024 timeframe. On the new truck side, we are quite bearish, and our thinking there, it's a demand side forecast, right? Because we have too many trucks, we need to stop putting trucks into the fleet.
Right.
Now, don't tell the OEMs, they don't want to hear that, right? That's the last thing they want to hear. So they're going to continue to try to put as many trucks into the fleet as they possibly can. Not sure who the buyers are going to be, but we'll get all that sorted out as we go through the year. So, and the right answer is going to be somewhere in between. I'm pretty sure I can guarantee that.
Yeah. Well, there's so many different factors at play that I'm going to say, often history repeats itself, but I think the current market is very unusual compared to 20, 30 years ago. And I'm specifically thinking about a conversation I had with a parts manufacturer that has operations in China and Eastern Europe. And one of the things we didn't prepare to talk about today, but maybe on a future episode, I'd love to get your take on the transitioning that's happening with clean energy, hydrogen, with electric trucks, not just in the the last mile delivery vehicles, but also in long haul, and how some of the Chinese manufacturers are so far ahead of not an electric, but also hydrogen and other alternative, and it's impacting the global pricing. And this is a global market today. That's just not a North American United States market. This is a global market, and it's going to impact us. The other thing we haven't prepared to talk about today was the collective bargaining agreements with the Teamsters and UAW and resetting those wages on the plant floor, the factory in the U.S. market, and the impact on not only the big three or big four automakers, consumer auto, but also the now trucking market, trucking OEMs. That is going to be a trickle down. In fact, I think it's impacting us. So we have a lot of things to talk about next year, Steve.
There's no doubt about that. It's always an interesting and exciting industry. Lots of developments. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I am so fortunate to have you as a resource. I know the industry, the UTA. I know you serve on the board of directors of the Used Truck Association. Yep. It's of great value to me, our team as a member, that we get to interface with ACT Research and yourself and other important thought leaders. I guess to wrap up today, Steve, is there any other comments on 2024 that you'd like to make, or does ACT Research have any events coming up that you'd like to promote today?
Yeah, I think one thing to watch out for in 24, John, you and I were talking about before the podcast, and you already alluded to the date. So in case the listeners haven't connected the dots, the Federal Reserve decided not to do anything with the interest rate today. And more importantly, they signaled rate reductions coming in 2024. So there's some relief out there, right? Folks need to keep that in mind. The other thing that I would tell your listeners, especially the carriers in the population, the banks don't want to own these trucks. So if you're struggling, talk to your bank, work with your financing source. They by and large will find a solution, and one that doesn't involve you having to give up your livelihood. So thinking about our events, we do a couple of seminars every year for our customer base or folks who are interested in learning more about us. Those are in February and August, and you can get more information from those on our website, acresearch.net. We also do webinars. If somebody doesn't want to make the trip to Columbus, Indiana, you can join us virtually 4 times a year, and the details for that are on the website as well. So,
all right. Well, Steve, thank you again for taking time out to talk to our trucking community. Really great seeing you, and we look forward to having you on again in the first quarter of 24. So thank you for being on.